Designing a website without writing a single line of code sounds like a dream for most creatives, including myself. However, most tools have their limitations. WordPress, for instance, needs a lot of plugins and maintenance to work properly, while most drag-and-drop online site builders are forcing you to use templates and restricting your creativity. There is one tool that stands out that seems to fulfill the dream, called Webflow. I was approached by their team to try it out on an actual web design project, and I was pleasantly surprised by how quickly I found my way around it. It almost feels like using a tool like InDesign in a browser. In this video, I will show you how I turn an Adobe XD prototype into a fully functional, responsive site with some cool parallax effects and animations. This video is going to be very hands-on. I'm going to show you exactly how I take my Adobe XD prototype and turn it into a working website using Webflow. If you want to find out what's the difference between the two tools and also compare it to other similar builders, for that I created this Milanote board, for which the link is in the description below, so you can read more into it if you're interested. Before we get started, I just want to show you two sites that were built in Webflow, and they show and highlight some of the cool features that you can use, like these parallax effects that you will see further down here, the interactions on hover and page scroll, and we can see that also this is a fully responsive site, so when I change the size of my browser, it adapts to it. Now, the best thing again is in Webflow, you can do this without writing a single line of code. You will see exactly how it's done. But here's another really nice site. I'm just going to refresh it so you can see how it loads up. We have some really neat animations and effects here, and you can see a lot of things going on here. Cool effects, really nice transitions. And then once again, this is all responsive. And we have some nice menus here, even cursor effects, and so on and so forth. Now, if you go on Webflow's site, you can find these examples in their showcase, but I'm going to start with a new project as I promised. So without any further delay, let's get started. I'm going to pick the blank site, and I'm just going to call this Nature Photo. I'm going to create the project. Now, here we are in the Webflow Builder, and if you're familiar with Adobe products, you will find the layout and the user interface quite similar. So on the left side, we have the toolbar, then we have panels, and we have also selectors here on the top to change the view between the different platforms or screen resolutions. But I'm going to tell you more about this as we go along. So first of all, I will show you in XD what I created. So this is the visual for the site, the main page of the website. By the way, in XD, you can use the Command Scroll or Control Scroll to zoom in and out quickly, and Command or Control 0, just like in Photoshop and Illustrator, to fit the page or artboard to the screen. So you can see it's a fairly simple site. We have a header, we have a main slider on the top, and a couple of things below. Now, I'm going to make it slightly longer in the actual Webflow project, but for now, this is all that we need to know. In XD, when you start creating your mockups, you can also create prototypes, so create multiple pages and even try out how it's going to work when you switch between the pages. But for now, I'm just going to show you that when you are ready, you can go into the file menu and choose Export, all artboards or batch, or you can even have a selection and then export only the selected items. But before we jump into Webflow, let me just show you one thing here in XD, which also is an amazing feature, especially when you're working on these visuals or mockups. I'm first of all going to double click on the artboard and drag it further down so we have a little bit more space here. And let's just say this layout that I have with the camera and the text next to it is something I would like to have more of. So I would like to have a couple of features listed below this. For this, you can use the repeat grid feature in XD. You can press Command or Control R or click on this icon here on the right, and that creates a grid from it, which means you can then drag it down and you can duplicate things as easily as that in both directions, not just vertically, but also horizontally. Now, the best thing about this is that we can make amends to each of these items without messing up the grid. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to zoom a little bit closer. And for example, if I want to change the text on this second item, which would be wildlife at your fingertips, you will see that it's not changing anything on top and the bottom. And to replace the image, it's best to drag and drop all three images that you wanted to use. So if I drag and drop them in here, it's going to update all three images at the same time. Then on it and start moving it around. Notice how it's updating all of them at the same time, or just simply increase the size of the text, and without messing up the copy, they are all moving at the same time. And this is just one of many things that I love about working in Adobe XD, especially for web design. It is really a rapid prototyping tool from which you can get started and turning it into a working, functioning website in Webflow. But I have already everything prepared, so we can just switch back into the browser. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to add the header. For this, I am going to click on the plus sign here, and you can see that we have a couple of pre-built layouts here, but what we need to start with is the navigation bar. So I'm just going to drag and drop that in here. Now, if you start off without having any sections in your design, that might be a problem later on. So I recommend to do that first. And obviously you can do this later as well, because you can drag and drop every element easily from one place to another. So I'm just going to drag this section, and you can see I can use the navigator as well to decide where this is going to be, or here in the actual viewer or layout area. So I'm just going to drop it here on the top and then drag the nav bar into the section. Just like in the layers panel, you can see exactly now nav bar is inside the section. So now that's ready, we can put our first image inside this box. There's a very handy shortcut in Webflow. If you press Command or Control E, that's going to give you the quick find. And if I just type in image and then press enter, it's going to place it in already inside that selected item. So we can see it now inside the brand section, we have the image. Now I can choose image, and we can just simply drag and drop images in here. I'm going to use Finder and select the image that we need, the logo, and I just drag and drop it here. Now you can also drag and drop multiple elements or images at the same time and add them into the assets library in Webflow. By the way, you can also switch to that view by pressing J on the keyboard, so you can always see all your assets, or just click on this icon here on the left. There's also a shortcut for the navigator, which is Z, or click on again this icon here on the left. So now that we have the image in place, I can start refining the spacing and the padding. So what I'm going to do is to add a margin above it. And notice I'm just simply dragging up and down these numbers. But what's even cooler is if you hold down the Shift key, you can increase and decrease these values all at once, so in all directions. Or if you use the Alt or Option key, dragging up and down, it's going to change the opposite sides simultaneously. Again, holding down Alt or Option key, clicking on a number, you can reset it. So I can very quickly reset these, and then still holding down Alt or Option, I'm just going to increase the top and bottom margins. And then I am going to also reduce the size by holding down the Alt key or Option key. You can also click and drag left and right on any values, and you can very quickly update them or change them. So now I can just set it up to probably around 70%. I think that's a good size for the logo. And for the actual navigation links, I can select the whole menu, and I can continue doing the same thing. So I can move them further down, something like that. And then of course we can start changing these. So here I'm just going to type in magazines, and then I'm going to select this one. And I think in the original design, if we go back to XD, the next one is school. So once again, just simply double click and start typing them in. Now, if we need more navigation options on the top, we can just simply hold down the Alt or Option key and drag one of these, place it where it needs to go. Once again, let's check. The next one is authors. So I'm just going to double click, type that in, and then we can also do the same thing by using Command C or Control C to copy, and then Command or Control V to paste. So you can see how quickly we added another one again, and I can just type in one more, portfolios for now. Now, I'm not going to spend more time on the navigation bar for now. Let's move on to a more exciting element, the slider. So for this, I'm going to again create a new section. So you can see our first section is here. I'm going to just select it and create a class for it, which is useful because then later on we can reuse this class if we need to. I'm just going to call it navigation or main menu, maybe something like that. Now let's create a new section. We go into the add options and then drag the section right here under the nav bar. For this section, I'm going to use another element. Quick find is probably the easiest. Command or Control E, type in slider and then enter. So that's already placed in. Now the height for this should be different. So I'm just going to find the size. It's up here. So instead of automatic height, I'm going to define this to be 400 pixels, maybe even bigger, 500 pixels for now. We can change this always later, but that's a good size. And I am going to show you that here in the navigator, if we open this up, you can already see that we have two slides. And also here at the bottom, we can see that. Now in slide 1, I am going to place in the first image, and the best way to place it in is instead of drag and dropping an image inside it, I am going to use this background option. So click on the plus sign and you see by default it's going to add the background image. Then we can choose the image, and once again from the finder I'm just going to drag and drop one of these images in. Let's just drop in a few more. So I'm going to select this one and then maybe the pelicans. Let's just drag and drop all three of them in here. Now out of these, I'm going to select the first one. Of course, you want to minimize the size of your images. So if they are really high resolution, it might take long for the site to load. But that's actually one of the biggest advantages of Webflow, that if you are hosting your site with them, the speed is incredible. So the sites load really fast. So it's really well optimized, both the code and the hosting as well. Now I'm going to go back to the images. So once again, choose image. And I start with the image 1, but it's important that instead of using it as a pattern, we want to set it to cover. We can also pin the position to the center point or any points of the image. So if we want to see a little bit more of the bottom part, then we can pin it at the bottom. Now I'm going to set it to the center so we can see the nice sky with the northern lights. And I'm going to switch to slide 2 and repeat the same thing. So once again, we go to backgrounds, choose the image. For this, I'm going to choose this second one, Canyon, and I'm going to set it to cover and then pin it to whichever part makes sense. I think this time it's probably good to have it here on the top. Now, if you want to add a third slide, the easiest way to do that is to go to the settings tab, and then there we can choose add slide. It's better to do it than copy pasting, because if you are copying a slide, they might get connected so that one of them will be the parent and the other one is the child. And then you just have to fiddle around a bit more to divide them or separate them. This way, I think it's faster. So now that we have slide 3, we can go back into the style options, and then here further down, we go into the image and then choose a different image, and we choose this one. Once again, it's already set to cover, it seems. We just need to change the position. Probably center will work for this one. Yeah, I like it. Now, the only thing I'm going to change is to go back to the main size of the slider. So I'm going to select the slider and then maybe increase this to 550 pixels. Yes, something like that. Now, at any point, if you want to test out how your site works, you can use Command or Control Shift P, the shortcut in which you can test it out. Now, by default, the slider is not going to move around, so we can only manually switch between the 3 images that we added. And of course, depending on the screen size, we will see different parts of it. So in the preview, we can already switch to, let's say, the tablet size, in which I can see a slightly different proportion in the image. And notice that already the menu switched into a mobile-friendly menu, which is quite nice. We can also see how it's going to look like on the mobile. So we can go back to the design mode with the same shortcut, Command or Control Shift P, or click on the eye icon here on the top. So there we are back, and I am going to select the slider and go into the settings, and I would like it to automatically play the sides. So I'm going to just add that option, and then we can set up all kinds of other things, like instead of the animation type that we had, we can choose fade over, which is quite nice. So let me just show you this once more. We go into preview, and I just wait a little bit longer, and then we will get the fade over, or we can also see it when we are switching between them. All right, so that's all we needed to do for the slider. Now I'm going to show you a really cool feature, how to add an animation on the site. Webflow has an integration with a site called Lottie, and you can find this element here on the left side. First of all, let's just add another section at the bottom. And I'm going to go back to adding elements, scroll all the way down, and then you will see it here in the media section, Lottie animation. I'm going to drag and drop that element into this new section. And if I scroll a bit further down, you can already see it here. And to find some sample animations, we can go to this link, Lottie Files, and it opens up the website where you will need to create an account for yourself, and then you can download these pre-made animations. Now, some of them are paid, but there's also free ones. So for example, if I just type in camera, we can find a lot of cool animations. And here's one, which is completely free. So all you have to do is to download this JSON file. Once you download that, you can import it straight into Webflow. And this is the file format that you need to use even when you are creating something yourself in After Effects. And that's a really cool aspect of this. Again, an integration between the Adobe Creative Cloud and Webflow that is really nicely connecting these tools together. If this is something you would like to learn more about, and you would like to see me creating something in After Effects, then preparing it for Webflow, let me know in the comment sections below, and I will be glad to record a separate tutorial on this topic. But coming back to the designer, I have this file already downloaded, so we can just add it to our assets. Here is the file, JSON, and I'm just going to drag and drop it in. Now that it's added, I can just replace it with this one, and it's already on the site, but you won't see it unless you go into the preview mode, and you can see at the moment it's huge. Now, to fix this, we need to have a separate element within the section. So what I normally do if I want to constrain an element is either use a container or a div block. I'm going to use Command or Control E and then type in div, and div block comes up. So now that we have this, we can just set it up so that the animation is inside the div block. Then we select the div block, and from the settings here on the right, we can set it up its size. So I'm going to use for the width, maybe 200, and then for the height, maybe 150. Yeah, something like that. And then with this icon here, we can center it. So the div block is now in the center. So let's see the preview, how this looks like. And I think that looks perfect. So that's how quick and easy it was to set up this animation. And we can go back into the settings and make sure that the animation keeps playing. So when the animation itself is selected, we can go to the settings and just simply choose loop. Now, just to make sure you understand how quick and easy this was, I'm going to replace this animation with another one. So I just go back to Lottie Files, and here's another one which just shows the aperture and how it's changing, which is quite cool. So if I click on this, once again, this is a free animation from Lottie Files. I'm going to download the JSON file. So now that the file is downloaded, we can go back to Webflow and we can go into our assets and just simply drag and drop the file in. So there's the aperture file. JSON. And then all we have to do is from the media assets, we can just drag and drop this into the div block. You can click on preview animation here on the right side, and we can already see it working. So once again, that's how quick and easy it is to add animations to your web designs. Now let me switch back to XD to show you the next part of the page. I'm going to actually skip this bit here in the middle because I would like to focus on this bottom part where I'm going more into the features of these magazines. And the first one is about the cameras and gear tested in the field. So for this, I would like to start introducing some parallax animations. Now, just to have something to be able to scroll up and down and be able to see the parallax effect, I'm going to add another element here, in this time a container. I'm going to use Command E and type in container. There it is. Just make sure it's not inside the div block. So I'm just going to drag it out. Yep, there it is. And I'm going to place an image inside this and choose the image. Let's just choose the magazine. And there it is. Now we can create a new section at the bottom. So let's go to the plus sign, section, and then drag and drop it all the way here at the bottom. So notice that we can't add the section inside another section. That's completely normal. Now that we have our section here, I'm going to use another element called columns, which will give us the settings, whether we want 2, 3, 4, or any types of columns. I'm going to pick 2, and also notice that we can already set up the size or division between these columns. I actually would like slightly more space on the right for this first feature. Then here in this left column, so column 1, I would like to place an image. So I'm going to again type in image, place it in, and then choose the image and just drag and drop the camera into our library. And once it's uploaded, we can select it and it's already there. Now on the right side, I would like to have text. So I'm going to add a heading first of all, and then I'm going to add another element, paragraph. Using this shortcut really feels like I'm in InDesign, where we have quick apply with Command or Control, Return or Enter. Even the shortcut is almost the same. So I really like this. It feels really natural. Now I'm going to just make some adjustments. For the paragraph, I would like to have some padding from the right. So I'm just going to squeeze it in a little bit like that. And then I am going to just type in here, camera tests. It doesn't really matter what we write there for now. And I am going to have some more margin from the top. Then I select the image, and we will also have a margin from the left. And I'm going to make this smaller. So Alt left drag the maximum width, something like that. Then from the position, I'm going to open float and clear and choose the right option. So position the element to the right within that column. And then maybe I'm just going to increase the margin a bit more on the text, something like that. And now we can start adding our parallax effect. What you need to use is an interaction. So I select the image, I go to interactions here on the right, choose the plus sign on the element trigger. Then choose while scrolling in view, then choose select action and create a new scroll animation. Now this is a really powerful editor where you can create all kinds of cool animations and you can combine multiple movements as well. In this case, I'm going to start with a simple move transformation. So select move, and by default, when you see under scroll actions, when you select something, it's going to create a start and an end point. Now, for this to work, you need to define something for the start point. I am actually going to define the end point first, because this is where I want it to be. So I'm going to just type in 0 and 0 pixels in the X and Y values. Then I go back to the start point and I'm going to move it to the left. So I want it to come from the left side. And for the Y value, I'm just going to type in 0 pixel. Once the little exclamation mark disappears, it means that the animation can work now. And we can even test it out by turning this live preview feature on. So if I scroll up and down, we can see that the camera is coming from the left into the side, which is great. But to be able to see it properly, I'm going to add another section to the page. So let's just drop a section here at the bottom. In the navigator, it's easier. And I'm going to go into the options for this and type in 800. So we have more space to scroll down. Select the image again, and then I'm going to go back to interactions. And by the way, it's good to rename your interactions like this one while scrolling in view. I am going to select it and change the scroll animation's name, because this is something that we can reuse if we wanted to. So I'm just going to rename it and call it fade in from left. I like to write the directions in capitals usually. So fade in from left. That's nice, but if I want to make changes to it, we can just click on the cog icon, and I am going to add an additional scroll action because I would like it also to fade in. So I want opacity also to be animated, and I would like to add an additional opacity keyframe. We can also call these. So there's our opacity at 100%. I'm just going to select it, and we can see opacity is 100%, but it should start with 0%. So if we turn the live preview on, this should already work. I'm not sure why this didn't register. Let's just set it up again. Okay, 0. That's it. Now turn the preview on, and then as we scroll up and down, we can see how that looks like. Now, I actually would like the opacity to start already on, let's say, 20%. So if I go up and scroll down, you can see how that changed it. And also, I would like the opacity and also the movement to arrive to its final destination or endpoint before it leaves our viewport or screen. So I'm going to set it up a little bit further up. So the endpoint is going to be around 60-70%. So if we check this out, you will see that now it reaches the center a bit faster. I would say even earlier is better, maybe 50 and 60%. The movement should be actually before the opacity or the fade, or very close to each other, something like that. So now let's test it out. Yeah, that feels nice. So it arrives to its final destination around when it's at the center of the screen, which I think works really well. And of course, you can add all kinds of different things like rotation. Again, we just go into scroll actions, rotate, and then we can set it up. So the Z rotation is 0 at this point. So that's again the end point. And then we add the starting point for rotate. We just add that here and then drag it to the top, and then change the Z rotation maybe slightly to the left. Now, once again, if we test this out, let's scroll down, and we will see there's a subtle rotation as well added in there, which is really nice. Now on the next object, let's take the parallax effect even further. I'm going to create a cool out of bounds effect with this image, which we've seen already in XD. Now, what I've done here in Photoshop is that I prepared already the background and the bird in two separate images. So originally this is one photograph, but what I've done is to remove the eagle and I just have the background. For this, I use Content Aware Fill, and on a separate layer, I separated the bird from the background by using simply masking. I used the pen tool, drew the path around the eagle. It took some time, but now I have it completely isolated. So what I am going to do is to save these two images separately. I will have the background saved as a JPEG and the bird layer as a PNG because I need the transparency for this to work. Now, you can do this in Photoshop very easily by selecting both layers, and you can right click and choose Export As. Once you are in there, you can select the layer that you want to save as a JPEG, set up the quality probably to 60% usually is a good idea to do, and also make sure you reduce the size. So in this case, the scale can be much lower. Probably the width can be around 600 for this website. I think that's enough. And you can see already it's 60 kilobytes. So file size is always important to reduce as much as we can, but then we can select the bird layer and then we can set it to PNG. So we have transparency there, but once again, the width should be lower. Again, 600 pixel in this case should be fine. Now this is slightly bigger, but we can always try to use the smaller file size. With 8-bit, then it becomes much smaller, and I think it still looks good. So I already have these saved out. So let me show you how I put it together in Webflow. So here we already have a section prepared at the bottom, and I'm going to just drop a column in here. So I select the section, use the shortcut Command Control E, and then type columns. Then I am going to use the same settings, probably 5 on the left side, 7 on the right. We can already add a bit of margins just so we separate it from the top. And then on the left side, I am going to actually add a div block. So once again, we start typing it in and pasting it in. I use the same shortcut again for the quick edit. So we have our div block in here. The reason I use a div block, because first we need to create a background and then place the image on top of that. So the div block itself is going to use the background by adding it from here, backgrounds, click on the plus sign and then choose image. And we will need to drag and drop these images that I saved. So the PNG and the background, so the bird back. So let's just drag and drop them in here. And I'm going to select for this div block, I'm going to select that bird back, which is already selected. It's great. We can just set it to be a cover, set the position to center, and then we can go to the actual size of this. I'm going to set up the height to maybe 600. Let's just see how that looks. Okay, so that's a little bit too big. Let's make it 300. And then the width also 300. Okay, that works quite well. I can now align this to the center of the frame and then maybe add a little bit more margin here on the left side. I'm just going to do something like that. Okay, that works well. Now we can add an image inside this div block. So even though we have an image already inside it, that is just the background of the block, but we can still place an image inside it. So this is really the trick. So what I'm going to do is to use the shortcut Command E and then start typing image. And notice this will already show up here in the navigator inside the div block. So now we can choose our image, and that is the bird PNG. So that's already there. We can again just adjust the margin, drag it down. Once again, it feels like working in Photoshop, moving things around so easily. I love this about Webflow. So I'm just going to set it up somewhere around there. I think that's good. And now that we have it in place, we can go to interactions, click on the plus sign on the element trigger and choose the same option as on the camera while scrolling in view. Then select the play scroll animation option, and this time we will create a new scroll animation. We could use the same one as we had on the camera, but instead I'm going to create a new one because this will be slightly different. I will start with the movement. So I add the movement, and the start point, I want it to be where it is. So I'm just going to type in 0, 0 for X and Y. And then the end point, I'm going to move it further to the right. Something like that. That's enough out of bounds, I think. I don't want it to go over the text, which will be on the right side. So that's already good, but we can just move this a little bit higher up, something like that. And don't forget to add 0 for Y. So the Y value doesn't change, but you still have to add the number there for the animation to work. So now this is all set up. We can turn on the preview and once again, scroll up and down. We can see how it works. Okay, that's great. And we can add a bit of rotation as well. So let's choose rotate. I'm going to put this here so it can arrive to how it is. So I'm just going to add Z rotation 0 degrees. And then I'm going to add another rotation here in the beginning where I'm going to set the rotation to actually, yeah, somewhere maybe there. Okay. And then the other one can be slightly rotated higher up. Yes, something like this. So let's check the preview again. If I scroll up and down, we can see the nice movement there. So the eagle is going outside of the frame and also slightly rotating. Now, of course, this is again just scratching the surface of what's possible with interactions in Webflow. So if you are creative, you can utilize this and really create some amazing effects on your web design. And of course, the site already, without me doing anything, is already responsive. Of course, you can refine the responsive settings if you go into the tablet size and then the landscape and portrait mobile sizes. And because Webflow is handling all the CSS in the background, if you're making changes in one breakpoint, it's not going to affect the other breakpoints. So just as an example, if I wanted to move these elements around, I can go in and adjust the margin, move it a little bit up, and then our logo, we can move it further to the center in this case, something like that. And now if I switch back to the desktop size or the tablet, you see it's not affected at all. But in the mobile size, we can see how nicely it's positioned. And that is all I wanted to show you in this video. If you are ready to get started with Webflow, just click on the link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we release new videos. Click on the link on my right and start your membership today to get access to over 200 hours of training courses and personal mentoring by me and my team of creative professionals. Have fun learning, guys, and I will see you in the next one.